On the 16th of August, Saturday, ready to convene the regular board meeting in Fort Clark Springs. Did we have a roll call?
Sure. Robertson,
Here.
Sweet,
Here.
Castle, here, Herman,
Here.
Hagan.
Here.
We have a quorum and all board members are present. Could Ms. Brown, I guess, would you do the invocation?
Lord, you have showered us here at Fort Clark with so many blessings. Let us be appreciative of those blessings. And thank this board for all the efforts they put forth on our behalf, that we all might work together for the benefit of Fort Clark Springs. Please watch over those overseas who are fighting for this country, those who are suffering for their religious beliefs. Bless those at home and each person here and the trials and tribulations they may be experiencing in their own lives. We ask all of these things in your name, Jesus Christ.
Amen. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Honor the Texas flag. I pledge allegiance to thee, Texas, one state, under God, one and indivisible. Well, I guess our first agenda item is announcements and correspondence.
I have a few of those. We have, first of all, I received a email from Ann Watt in Canada who said if the people who are speaking in the audience would identify themselves when they spoke, it would be helpful to those who are watching online. So while I can't say we can require you to do that, it would be nice if you would. Then we have complaint forms from James L. Baird, including a letter from him on Unit 14. His complaint concerns members, guests who do not live in Unit 14 taking shortcuts in motorized vehicle through Unit 14. To Ms. Stevens, reference the bylaws of Fort Clark Springs Association, Article 7, miscellaneous duties of the Director of Operation. Unit 14 has endured a myriad of past exclusion from events, perhaps the biggest being ignored in the repaving fiasco a few years ago. This is a much simpler complaint which I and others believe should be addressed. I discussed this with Mr. Bland a few years ago and was promised a response, but never received one. Okay, I didn't file a written complaint, and this should not require everyone in a unit to complain if the violation is one that should apply as a general condition of operating motorized vehicles on the fort. It does happen anywhere. The issue is I am sick and tired of members speeding down the middle of Zavala Street, taking a shortcut to get to Fort Clark Road to proceed south to the golf course, or other units and doing the same thing in reverse to get to the Scales Road and head east. No one is complaining about guests coming here, or bicycles or walkers using the mini and very uneven trail between Fort Clark Road and the end of the Jeez, don't make me start again. No way. It should be noted that the end of Days of Allah at this point is nowhere near either of the two paved legal entrances to Unit 14, both on Scales Roads. So what we have is members, yes, living in units down Scales Road, disrespecting members, property owners in Unit 14 by refusing to properly continue down to the stop sign at Fort Clark Road and then turn right or left, depending which way they are headed. Long ago, there were 2 tall iron poles on the ground in Fort Clark Road entrance, presumably to do just that. Prevent motorized vehicles from entering there. There was still one bent there a few years ago, which has since been removed. At present, there are only signs on the green area announcing the responsibility of pet owners to clean up after their pets. I suggest that without installing 1 or 2 barriers, that another sign be placed announcing the prohibition of any motorized vehicle using that small trail, perhaps similar to the one on the walking track. This way, infractions could be monitored and enforced if necessary. This is not brain surgery, but the right thing to do. Please notice that unlike most other units, no street in Unit 14 runs through or connects to other units in its vicinity. He has another letter related to environmental layout conditions of the units, and maybe that should be directed to the architectural committee. I assume it probably was. Oh, my word. He has a dangerous corner that he's complaining about, and I think that the architectural committee might want to look at that. Say more? Oh, thank
I've got
you.
one, but I'll just bring it up to the executive session because it makes a lot of names and a little profanity.
Sorry, I read that ahead of time to make sure I'd read it right, but it didn't come out that way. Thank you.
I guess we should do reading and approval of the minutes, July 19th, 2014.
I move to approve the minutes.
I second that motion.
We need to add Bill Herman's name in there. He wasn't called, he wasn't added on the roll call.
Oh, gee. I asked them to add mine and then they
Yeah,
took
just
Bill's
add
out.
this, just need to add Bill's name to it.
Sorry, Monique, I should have caught that.
We all should have caught it. Actually, the minutes are very well written. Very well.
I have a couple of minor typos too, but I can show you those later.
No other discussion or comments? A vote to approve the minutes, as with the corrections Bernard noted. All in favor? The Director of Operations report?
Oh, yeah.
Good morning.
Morning.
Past 6 weeks have been, my head's been buried in the budget, trying to get everything together. So as far as continuation of cleaning up around the fort, that's still happening. I think the maintenance crew is finally getting a little bit on top of cleaning and caught up on the mowing. And during the planning of the budget, looking toward the new year, is how to get community events and bring the camaraderie back to our membership with, going back to the ideas of movie night and concerts and things of this nature. I'm looking really forward to working with Community Council. Alice and I met 3 weeks ago? 2 weeks ago. So she knows I was buried in the middle of my numbers and my budget, so next couple of weeks we'll get back together and really come up with a game plan for Fort Clark Days and how we're going to marry up and make this a very successful event for the fort. And again, giving something for the community to come together on and maybe unite with our history and our celebration of our Fort Clark Days. A lot more golf tournaments are going to be planned for the upcoming year, continuing with our October Fest, which is going to be the 3rd year. I'm kind of excited about that. Hopefully we'll expand on that event and make it bigger and better. Along with our Thanksgiving tournament, we're going to try to do our best to get that golf course back to a black situation instead of a red situation. A lot more marketing and things of this nature. The Kris Kringle golf tournament, which will be Christmas time, and also the 2nd annual New Year's Eve or New Year's Day hangover tournament. So hopefully we'll be bringing in some new business to that golf course. Also in the planning is obviously a lot of things that we need to do around here repair-wise. Motel, hopefully we'll generate some money that we can finish remodeling on the Bullis Hall. We needed a lot more, we'll go into all the budget stuff probably the Monday when we do our workshop. But anyway, lots of planning. There's lots of things that need to be done. Golf course, obviously, I think we had a list of about $22,000 worth of stuff that we need out at the golf course to hopefully make it look a little better. But as you look at all these and number crunching and whatnot, you kind of realize there's not a lot of income coming in, no matter how much you want to plan and how much you need. It's kind of the bare minimums. But other than that, proud of the team for moving forward, making the place look good. Hopefully we can in the near future foreclose on some properties, move forward with these things, that we start cleaning up our community. Other than that, thank you. Have a wonderful day.
On our membership deal, we have foreclosures and it has 7 on them. Is that just memberships that we foreclosed on throughout the year?
No, I think we haven't foreclosed on anybody this year. So probably like we would like to do if you're 7 that we had in the.
That's what it's
Yes, sir.
referring to, okay.
Uh-huh.
Then I guess organizational reports, the architectural committee.
My name is Phyllis Gibbon, and I'm a member of the Architect Committee. And I do want to thank Bill Herman, who is our board member that does attend our meetings. And we meet every Tuesday at 9 o'clock here in the boardroom. Applications were submitted and permits were granted in Unit 3 for a radio antenna. Our amateur radio people are really getting active in our community. Unit 14, a fence permit was granted. Unit 35, a back porch is going to be constructed. And in Unit 21, which is a specialty unit, a partial permit was granted for a sidewalk. And the other is being taken under consideration because it is within the historical community.
Golf.
The golf committee did meet on Wednesday. We had a quorum at the meeting. We did go over our last meeting notes, which was April, I believe, was the last time we had a full quorum. Some of the old business that we discussed was the gift certificates. You can now buy a gift certificate at the golf course. You can buy it with or without a card. So if you've got that person that's really hard to buy something for, you can go down and buy a gift certificate and give them to them. This is actually just a copy of what is given. And whoever's working the pro shop has to sign off on it, and then they have to check if they paid for or did not pay for a card. We also, as Jody mentioned, we're having a Labor Day tournament. That will be going to the golf course this afternoon. I've got flyers and a entry blank that's going to the golf course today. I'll get that down there. Debbie Isaacs, by the way. We are planning on having, the golf committee is helping with the Happy Cervantes tournament. He is maybe wanting to turn that tournament over to the board and to the golf committee. We need to discuss that a little further and to what extent he's actually wanting us to take it over. There's been some conversation brought up about us going to one of these programs that actually charges us so much for every hit that goes onto their website, and they give away our golf. And that's what it basically amounts to. We've got people that go out at 8 o'clock, we've got people that go out at 9 o'clock, we've got a 10 o'clock bunch, we've got a 10:30 bunch, we've got an 11 o'clock bunch, and I think the 1 o'clock bunch is now going at 12 or a little earlier. And the only places that are really open on our golf course is 4, 5, and 6 o'clock. The course closes at 6, so they can't get a golf cart after 6 anyhow. So why would we want to pay somebody to give away golf gear just to get somebody in? We can do that ourselves later on once we get going and we need that. But that's one of the perks of being on this golf course is because you do not have to have a tee time to go out. Just saying. We have and I've also got that, we have phone numbers, emails, addresses for over 91 golf courses. We have 265 women's addresses and 295 men's addresses from all around our area, people that have played this golf course. So we do have all of that in a computer program. Just to let people know that we are very up on what we're trying to do with the golf course and trying to bring in new people. One of the things we've also talked about last month was initiating a active military discount for anybody that's active military to come in on a certain day. I'm not sure what day that's going to be just yet, or what the discount's going to be, but we're going to try to bring in some of the military people with the discount. And hopefully that'll generate some income. We've also, on new business, we've instigated 2 work days, one on August the 25th, and that's to go out and spray the golf cart path with weed killer, pick up trash, fill in the holes where the deer have actually been up there playing. And also on Monday, September the 8th, will be the week before the Happy Cervantes tournament. So when people are in playing this tournament, they can see that things have changed on the golf course. So we've got those, and we are looking for volunteers, and there will be a volunteer list down there today. I've got those made up also to take to the golf course. And then, of course, like Jody said, we have scheduled, we're working on the Oktoberfest, the Thanksgiving, and also the Christmas. There's some other things going on that we may want to try a family day, a discount for a family of 4 or more. It's kind of hard for a family to go out there if they're not members and pay $20-something a person to play. But if we can instigate a family day, maybe we can get some children and some wives and do this instead of the family going into Del Rio to do. So that's another thing we're looking at. And we've got some more things, but we're not quite there with those yet.
Do you guys happen to have a count of how many feet or miles of golf trails you got? And how many of them are bad to need, because the day we went out there, a lot of the trails are not good.
The trails are all bad. There's never
Right.
been no money put back into the trails, even though we pay a trail fee every year. But no, I'm sure there is a mileage thing, but
Well, I was wondering if we could work on maybe some sort of estimate on what it would take to fix them or repave them or put more cold patch on them, or ideas on how to do it, or something to that we could work on.
I think Domingo may know what it was gonna cost, because when they done the roads, somebody got an estimate of what they would cost to do that, and it just was not feasible. But I think Domingo may know those two.
He does. It was put in the budget as a wish list item, but it's too much. He can do it sections at a time.
That's right, if we could work on a little piece at a time,
But it
maybe
takes
over.
money, and that's something we don't have a lot of.
And the less you do, the higher the cost is. The more you do, the cost goes down. So I do know that. But I know it was astronomical at the time they done those roads. We just couldn't afford it.
The figure that I was given the last time I heard was almost $100,000 to do the complete cart path system. So that's why it was called on the wish list. But actually, our members have gone out with cold asphalt and have repaired some of the areas. The reason we need to get the weeds out of there is because they come up and break up the asphalt. And the flooding that we had a month ago didn't help. It floated certain sections and broke them up. So it's something that we would like to do, but just don't have it right now.
The Preservation Committee?
One girl young, and we're back in action, so to speak. We had a meeting Wednesday. We approved serving out contracts to finish up the civic service center. And then to repair.
Could you maybe speak up or come up to the, because other people can't hear very well.
Well, gee.
Ooh, hush.
Well, the lady wrote it on the thing and the computer visitors couldn't hear
It's
it.
on, it's on.
We had a meeting Wednesday, and we approved working on the service center. Their siding is bad. We're going to fix some of the rafters that come out. They'll have to be sistered in and stuff like that. We're going to send out bids on that. We're getting a list of 6. We've got a total of 6 contractors. I called up 4, and Bill Good called up 2 more. And once we got their okay, we'll put the package together, send out the contracts, and get the bid on that. We also approved work on Seminole Hall, the front of Seminole Hall. It would be too much money to do the whole building at one time, but we want to get the front of it look. We're going to repair the decking up on the upper deck. The area where the bats come in, that have to be sealed at night so the bats are out. Stabilize the railing up there. Replace the fascia on the front. The 2 corner posts, I think it's the east end, that have been patched and look terrible. We're going to have those replaced and have the whole front of the building painted in 4 colors. Check the windows, replace the screens, check the doors, prep the doors, get it worked on. Same thing, both of those contracts will go out in the package. The contractors will have a option of bidding on 1 or 2 for both of the contracts. That's the contracts we're going to send out. We talked about the fire station, since maintenance has got the roof sealed on that, it doesn't leak anymore. That'll be at the next meeting. That's an old building. If we start working on it, we can get a plaque, reduce our taxes. The adult center is another one. Commissary. We got windows up there on the 3rd deck and 2nd deck that have holes and look outside and see the sky. They have to be repaired. Philip just got done telling me that maintenance is thinking about repairing it. But those buildings, the commissary especially, would have to be repaired with the mortar that matches the mortar that's there. Otherwise, we'll ruin our thing. We've got a lot of projects in the wind, and we can only do a certain amount. Like the fire station, we can't do it all at one time because every window in there is bad. But if we start on it, we can probably get a plaque, get the Historical Society to put in for a plaque and reduce our taxes. That's all I got from the Preservation Committee.
Has the Ford and you guys discussed on where the wall fell down there over here?
I looked, yeah, well, that wasn't talked about Wednesday, but I went down and walked that wall. It's my understanding that it's the preservation's obligation to repair that wall. It'll have to be repaired. It'll have to be done right this time. From what I'm looking at the wall, there was no seat pipes put in on the original where it fell down. The new section, they went back and they buried a slab of concrete and run rebar back and tied it into the new section that's got the padding. But that whole wall needs to have seat pipes put into it. And then if you walk along it and look, and you see where the grass is growing out, that means that the water's coming through there and the dirt's there, so it's growing grass. That has to be repaired. The top of that wall needs to have rock replaced and sealed with concrete. And the rest of the wall needs to have seat pipes put in so we don't have a problem with the rest of the wall. I do know there's a slope there that was originally for drainage. The ground looks like it's supposed to be sloping there. But it's all grown up with grass and dirt and it needs to be redone, and that'll help out a little bit. And that'll be on the agenda for the next meeting. We'll have to find out who did the last work out here and make sure that seat pipes are put in. Otherwise, you're just wasting money. This will be the fourth time.
Yeah, like you said, we probably need to somehow figure in on going all the way down through there, right? Gradually.
Well, if you put seat pipes in, it'll run down to the drain that's already there.
Yeah.
And there's no seat pipes in the rest of that wall, and it won't take much but a rock. You know, that sandstone is really soft. You cut a square hole, put a pipe in there, mortar around it, and it'll take care of that problem. But we got to seal the top of it. We got to dig out the mortar, cut the grass growing it, remortar it, and then we have to check and see how many seat pipes got to be put in. You put one at the bottom, and you put one maybe a foot down from the top. But I'm not an engineer, so I don't know how many or what the specifications are. But we got to find that out because we don't want to have this as a continuous project right after we get a big rain.
Ruby, may I ask another question? Do you have a list for the first thing that you need is this? In other words,
have we prioritized
yes.
this? No, ma'am, we haven't.
Seminole Hall is our first priority.
Seminole Hall is
you made it sound like the service club was
the service club and Seminole Hall. The service club will be finished. Seminole Hall is the next priority.
okay, you're working on service club.
Well, yeah, we're contracted.
I misunderstood, thank you.
And then the other projects such as fire station, commissary building, the golf center.
I mean, almost everything needs to be done. What I'm asking for is could the board have a prioritized list from the committee, please?
No, we don't. I mean,
Could you get one, please? That's what I'm asking.
No, I
Yes,
mean,
we do, Garland. We've got one. We have a list.
we haven't prioritized it yet, though.
Well, it was submitted to us from Kenny County Historical Preservation Society, and they go around to all of our historical buildings and rate
Understand.
them. And
Phyllis,
they
I
are-
understand. I'm just saying,
And yes, we do.
it doesn't matter to me that you have one now. What I'm asking for is could the board have one in the future?
Well, we
Sure.
Yeah, we can get you one once we prioritize. That's no problem.
Please, thank you.
Right.
What about, have you ever checked into getting grant money from the state?
I just talked to Allison Watkins. Told her I needed to talk to her after the meeting. To get a grant, you have to be a 501(c)(3). And we got Old Prairie Society, Historical Society, and Community Council all have 501(c). Hopefully, with the Community Council, we can get a working coalition that we can write a grant and matching cash, grants. But we don't have a 501(c)(3) now. And but we should be able to work with the other organizations that have 501(c)(3)s and get grants written so we can get money. If we can get $100,000 or $200,000, some people said put in for matching grants. Well, if you put in for matching grants, you don't have to come up with all that money at one time. You know, you pay $10,000 a year, 10 years. You know, the grant goes for. You know. So anyway, yes, we're talking about getting grants and stuff like that.
Thank you.
A lot of the government grants don't apply to us because we're a private entity. So a lot of grants that you apply for we cannot get some of those because of this being a private property. So the grants you have to apply for have to come from a different avenue sometimes.
Community council?
Good morning. My name is Allison Watkinson. I'm president of Community Council. I gave you all a written report as well above, but I'll go through that. Fort Clark Springs Community Council met last Saturday, August 9, 2014. We want to thank Directors Roby Roberson and Bill Herman for attending. Our memorandum of agreement for Fort Clark Days was given to Jody Stevens. Immediate concerns in our agreement were Fort Clark Days putting the insurance bill for 4 bundled events: Fort Clark Days and New Year's Eve, Valentine's Day, and the Chili Cook-Off. Jody stated the Fort would only consider paying the insurance for the 2-day event, and the insurance for the other events would need to be paid for by the sponsoring organizations, since these would be considered fundraising events for those organizations, rather than, bringing all that money into Fort Clark Days. Another initial area of concern was a 60-40 split of funds raised by the event. Essentially, Fort Clark Springs Association would be seeking sponsorships for the event. They would be offering advertising opportunities to sponsors. Sponsors' contributions would pay the bills for the event. Fort Clark Springs Community Council would have opportunities to fundraise through raffle tickets, bake sale, etc. Therefore, should there be a 60-40 split. Ms. Stevens asked for a couple of weeks to look over the memorandum of agreement, and we would meet again to get additions, corrections, before taking the memorandum back to Fort Clark Springs Community Council for another vote in September. Event insurance issues were again brought to the forefront, and Roby indicated he would be meeting with the Fort's insurance agent this week so he could get a better understanding of the issues. Secretary Forrester is continuing to work on the legality of the hot ball and the bingo games. Mr. Giblin resigned as first vice president. He's been hired by Brackett ISD full-time as the director of maintenance department and does not feel as though he is able to appropriately commit himself to community council. We are seeking volunteers to carry out his term that will end January 2016. We voted to pursue offering another Halloween Ghostly Tour fundraising event this year. Last year's one-night event was a howling success, and we would like to offer this again this year. Hopefully I will be able to meet with David Fox this week to iron out the details so we can do this again. Tricia Taylor gave us a wonderful rundown on the Kinney County Chamber of Commerce and all of the upcoming events they are hoping to sponsor. She also reported on the events of the Kinney County Arts Council, and Fort Clark Springs Community Council has joined the chamber as a non-voting member. Members' comments included complimenting the webmaster on the Fort's webpage. Number 2, the length of the meeting and the agenda of Fort Clark Springs Association Board of Directors, as well as the purpose and rights of the audience at the meeting. And 3, distributing the e-newsletter on a weekly basis. Community Council, along with other groups on the Fort, would be able to give much more timely information if the e-newsletter were once again weekly rather than a monthly publication. And then 2 items that are not included on your summary. We voted to give a $100 donation to the Feast of Sharing. And then we had originally intended to present the Building Restoration Committee with a check today, but we're going to postpone that until next month because I forgot to take a vote at the last meeting about not keeping our 40% split this year. We still have funds left in our checking account from last year for putting on the Fort Clark Days, and then we also have startup funds. So I'm not sure that keeping our 40% was a necessity, but I need to take that back to whoever's present at the September meeting. We've kind of briefly talked about it in the past. Our next meeting is scheduled for September 13th.
On the e-newsletter, there's been a lot of comments about having a more regular or less times between newsletters. Is there any reason we couldn't put out more of an e-newsletter?
What was happening was the information was redundant and things weren't getting sent to David on it was just the same information over and over, and it just seemed to be a lot more advantageous just to have a monthly calendar or a monthly events as opposed to weekly, because there's not a lot of new stuff to be sending out.
It's not really clear to me what the deadlines are for getting something in there either.
Well, we send it out
No.
Wednesday morning when we send out the agenda. So normally if they're there by the Tuesday before the board meeting.
Okay, I don't think that's in the newsletter itself, is it?
I think he sends out a notification it's on the bottom, I think, of the newsletter. If you have information you would like on the next month newsletter, please contact me with such and such information.
I'll have to read it again.
Recycling?
Well, recycling is going along. We're almost ready to send out another load. Judy had been in contact with the people we work with on recycling, and they're going to have another electronics recycling done. So they asked us to participate. So hopefully by next Saturday, we'll have some Gaylords out for people who want to start bringing over electronic stuff. We made some pretty good money on that last time. And there will be a list of, which I have, what can and cannot be recycled in terms of electronics. And hopefully we'll be able to set that up, around different places on the fort so people will know. But hopefully we can get that started next week. And if we will accept electronics on the same days that the recycling center is open.
RV? We don't have anybody from the RV, they're all...
The RV committee doesn't meet until the winter time when they get back into town.
We used to have a deal from the staff about how occupancy of the RV park.
Well, that's because Shirley was, we haven't had that since Shirley was been over a year now, year and a half. Due to the fact there's not any.
There's nobody at the RV
Right.
park. The next item is discussion and approval of the Fort Clark Springs insurance policy. Do we have a motion?
I will move that we discuss the insurance policy for the year 2013, 14, 15, excuse me.
I'll second it.
We have a motion and a second. The motion was made by Sandy Hagan, seconded by Myrna Castle. Open for discussion?
We're gonna vote on that motion?
I guess, yeah. So, all in favor? All voting and approves?
Well, first of all, I'd like to let everybody in membership here in a way that because of our excellent workers' compensation experience history, we received a dividend check for $6,629. We haven't had any losses in the last 2 years. And and I'm a retired work comp insurance claims specialist, and that is astounding. So I think that Jody and Phil and everybody who's in charge of employees deserve credit for reinforcing our safety programs here at the fort. That's a lot of money in dividends.
The insurance agent explained their policy, and one of the comments has been about event insurance and how come we're having to charge for all that, and we haven't in the past. And the event insurance is a secondary layer of coverage. It's one more insulating layer between the accident and Fort Clark. And anything that doesn't happen on a regular basis on Fort Clark or is put on by people that are not part of Fort Clark should have that event coverage you suggested, and that protects the fort from anything happening and hitting their insurance policy. it's something we probably should have always been doing and haven't been. The fort was at risk with everything. If somebody fell down, broke their leg, they could sue the fort, even if it was on Fort Clark days or whatever happened. So if it's any event that's different than the fort usually sponsors, it's not a regular, like golf. Golf happens every day, all day long, so it's covered. But Fort Clark days, the fireworks, things like that are special events, and it brings in people that aren't normally on the fort, and they're not normally used to what's going on, so that's why that insurance rider was added, or it was suggested we buy that coverage a year ago, I guess. I think on the entities on the fort, like Fort Clark days, the fireworks thing, that's for the good of the community and the good of the fort. I think there the fort could mitigate that by actually donating the cost of the insurance to that entity. So, because the fort can't buy extra insurance for the Fort Clark days, and somebody else put it on. We could donate the money that it costs to whoever was putting the event on, then they could buy the insurance and we would have made a donation to them so that they wouldn't have to pay the insurance. But for events that don't necessarily benefit the fort, I do feel that the people should pay for their own. They need to adhere to the policy we've got that they have to buy their event insurance. But generally, the insurance is, I think we've got a really good insurance deal, and the guy explained it pretty well. I'll never find the right page at the right time. If you divide the insurance out, we're paying $163 and change for insurance. That comes down to the 1,800 paying members.
63,000
Oh,
in
yeah,
change, not
$163.
$163. I love that in policy myself.
Anyway, it comes down, if you divide it by the paying members on the fort, that comes down to 23 cents a day is what it costs us for insurance. That's not a lot of money by any means. And we've got, I mean, we have a lot of risk. Therefore, I think that, those few events that benefit the fort could make a donation for the amount their insurance is. The board would have to approve that, but that would help them, because the fort benefits from those events.
I have one question on it. When someone rents a building here and we tell them it's so much for insurance, do we collect the money and buy the insurance, or does the person renting the building have to go out and get their own insurance? How's that work?
The person that's running the building has to go out and get their insurance. We have a number, they can call our broker, or they can research it on their own and get that additional policy.
That's good. I wasn't real clear about that, how we do that.
And we did have an addition that we talked about. We're covered for employee fraud and illegal transfer of funds up to a given amount, but we thought we should probably raise it. I guess this needs to be a second item, really.
Well, it's part of the entire policy.
Yeah, we've got it before.
Yeah, we wanted to raise the coverage, and the guy couldn't give us the exact number at the time, but it raises the coverage by employee fraud or illegal transfer, or somebody hacks into the fort's account. They could steal all the money the fort's got, or your checking account, and we would only be covered for part of it, and we thought it should be covered for all of it, possibly. That was the only addition and change we made, I think.
Right, because our accounts run over $500,000 on a regular basis. And we wouldn't want a computer hacker to get into those accounts and empty them, because really there's no way to get that money totally back again. So this particular premium increase is for computer fraud. And it adds $912 to the total premium coverage. But you're protecting $500,000 or more in assets. And it's actually probably one of the more important things in the chances of a hacker attacking the fort's accounts and getting most of the money is a lot higher than an employee going in and doing it because of our checks and balances.
Any other discussion? Seeing none, do we want to vote on approving the policy? And do we want to include this in there or approve this separately as a rider? Because we've still got it.
I think you could make the motion so that it be included.
Right, that's what I would say.
Okay, well then I will move that we agree to this insurance policy with the additional endorsement of computer fraud.
I'd like you to include the amount that it costs, the total amount.
All right, the amount of the, okay, I will rephrase the, where's our total? Okay. I will move that we approve the insurance policy for 14-215 at $163,346, plus the addition of computer fraud, adding an additional $912 to that premium, which would be somebody who's good at math.
$160.
Okay. 912, 21846, $164,812.
I'll second the motion.
Any further discussion? Seeing none, all in favor? Vote carries unanimously. Number 9 would be discussion and approval of the Fort Clark Springs bylaws, elections to send to the attorney.
The committee worked on this for quite a while. As it stands now, we'd like it to be submitted as it was submitted to, finally to Jody, rather than with the addition of returning the undeliverables to the fort. I did discuss this with Jody. Her reasons are reasonable, but the committee would like it to be sent to the legal as it was, please. If you want to fight that again, you can do it after it comes back.
Are you saying as is in our package?
No, as it was in the last one that I submitted to all of you and to Jody. She has added, return the ballots to the undeliverable one to the fort. And
No, that's not in there.
I'm sorry, did I get it wrong?
No, it's in here. It's in here.
I didn't add anything.
The one I have in the packet includes ballots returned as undeliverable shall be delivered to the Director of Operations after the annual
Yes,
meeting.
and that's what I'm asking.
Yeah, but it's after the annual March
It
meeting.
says after the annual meeting, right, okay.
Still
You're
saying, that isn't what I submitted to all of you and to Jody. The
Oh.
committee would like it to remain as it was, which was for it to remain with the auditing firm.
Who submitted
Okay.
this one?
And I'm not quite sure, and the reason for that is,
The possibility of fraud and so forth and so on.
if it comes back to the fort after the March meeting, the results have already been announced. I don't understand where the fraud would come in.
I think there's somebody in the audience that can answer that if Roby will.
Yes, Mr. Sullivan.
The problem isn't with that particular election. My name's Dan Sullivan. The problem is that would be a list that could affect the next election, the next cycle. If someone were to get their hands on that list and they know all these people never get their mail delivered, the ballots are never delivered to them, that would be a temptation to use those names and lists to submit invalid or forged ballots. And so it shouldn't be. And I would also like to mention that at last month's meeting, there was a motion made by Ms. Hagan, and it was stated that the revisions to the Article 4, the election bylaws, would be done by the ad hoc committee and then immediately sent to the attorneys to make sure they were legally compliant. And that motion was passed unanimously by your board. There was nothing said that it was supposed to come back to the board to gerrymander it or change it around, change it this and change that and then send it off. That wasn't the motion. The motion was to be sent immediately from the committee to the attorneys.
Okay, well, it was my understanding that also, the reason this went to committee was to have the individuals on that committee bring that part of the statute under 209, which they did not do. Secondly, it was also our understanding that the committee would be formed of various representation from the fort. And if you will recall, for the, I believe it was the architectural committee, we required that people have a chance to sign up for that committee. And as far as this thing, there were only 2 members on that committee, and it was not opened up to the general membership on the fort to allow them to give their input, as well as just the 2 people, you and the other individual, with Myrna's oversight, to do that. So and there also was nothing in the motion that said that the board could not give its input to it. So, but first of all, I was more interested in the fraud aspect. Is there some history on the fort that this has happened in the past?
Not that I'm aware of necessarily, but I am aware of people that have concerns about that, and this will alleviate those concerns. And there's no possibility it's a clean deal.
Okay, you do realize that we do need those lists of returned mail to take those people off the next mailing list. Otherwise, every time we send something out to the general membership, we waste postage, paper, envelopes, and time sending it to bad addresses. Is that part of your concern, or?
Well, it's my understanding that if they are on the membership list as members, then you are required to send them a ballot. You can't just pull them off. You have to get rid of the membership before you can do that.
But I
That's correct.
I was under the impression or understood that you need to send the mailings out, yes, but you can keep track of them after a certain amount of time on official paperwork that is sent from the fort, that at that time you can then take these people off the list.
You'd have to cite your source for that. For me,
I
I've never read that
I
anywhere.
understand what you're saying, but this is what I was told, that you can, you say, for 3 years, we send out, we send out mail, to the membership, and for 3 years, Fred Smith comes back as undeliverable, okay? Then at that time, we could take him off the list because at that point, you would assume, or could assume, or whatever, he doesn't exist anymore.
So for how many years so far do you have the list of undeliverables?
I
Can I
think,
answer that?
Sure.
If anybody was gonna be dishonest, we already know which ones are the bad addresses. So you'd have it from the get-go. Because we've got 7 years of audits from the auditing firm with the bad addresses on it. So if we're already gonna be dishonest, we'd already do that.
Then you should be able to take them off the list now, right?
If you could, if you wanted to, because we have you had about 250 that are bad addresses. So every coupon, every vote, we send it out, 250. Anybody who gets a mailing list to run for the board, the upcoming, you had a whole list of bad addresses. We're still gonna run that report, we're still gonna send it regardless.
$300 worth, I think. That's what I paid for my list. First off, the ad hoc committee is appointed, chairman is appointed by Myrna, she was put in charge. The ad hoc committee, but Dan Sullivan, they choose who is on the committee. There's no,
Carolyn will block.
But it was
Right.
also told that they would have let people know that wanted to attend, that they would attend, and nobody knew anything when they met.
Well, you better check the audio-visual recording of the meeting, because that was not said here.
It was
Now it's
stated.
here that anybody that wanted
It was
to be
stated.
involved could.
If somebody wanted to come and see what you were doing, it was stated
It
on the
was
video.
stated.
Yeah.
It was.
And I
Who
bel-
knew? Who knew when you met?
I
You
believe
should
Myrna,
ask. You asked?
When, no.
We had
Well,
to
you
post
want
for
me
the
to go around knocking every door and say we're
Bring it in,
meeting?
bring it in.
You've got email addresses, there's a
I
bulletin
don't
board
have
out front.
email addresses.
Excuse me.
That was gonna be done.
Excuse me.
Done by the
That's-
administration office.
I believe Ms. Casa did ask for members and state the date of the first meeting here.
I did. Also, if you read the the motion that Sandy made on page 3 of last month's minutes, it is as Dan has stated. The problem with all of this is an ad hoc committee. There isn't time to post it and really no reason, because it's a committee that comes together because of their interest. Dan had been working on this for 2 months before it was finally brought to the board, but he had brought things to the board individually before, so it wasn't new, and Dan had been working on it, so he really made the obvious appointment of a chair.
And the ad hoc committee was supposed to create the list and then have it sent to the attorneys, then it would come back before the board for discussion and approval.
But the ad hoc committee was also responsible for bringing the election statutes under 209, which they did not do.
No, they weren't. That's why it's going to the lawyer.
That
was the
No,
whole reason
no.
of sending it to the attorneys, you're concerned. for
And then we would
bringing
have to
under
send it
209.
back again. And
No, I don't
this is
think-
also, ad hoc committee was also an advisory committee. Now, we can send both versions. We're trying to save money. Attorneys are expensive. And by sending a document that clearly had included things that are not under 209, sending them back again, the board making revisions, then we have to send them back to the attorney again. And Myrna was also head of that committee, and she was involved in some of the changes.
I did not head that committee. I sat in on that committee. I did some typing after everybody, but it did come to the board, and you did have a chance to put in your...
And we did.
Yes.
We did.
And the committee then again argued against the section of bringing the undeliverables back to the fort. Whether or not I agree with that, it is something the committee requested that be in here. I don't think that there are a lot of changes that the board wants to make after it comes back, because you've already had a chance to put in your changes.
That's true. And I did not make that change there, and I don't know
No,
where
I
that came
understand, and I understand why Jody did it, because it
Jody
makes
said-
all
no,
kinds...
Jody didn't make the change
All I
either.
did is put that there was an envelope that all of our election.
I'm sorry.
ballots-
I don't know how it got there then. That's
I didn't add
okay.
anything to this.
That's right.
Oh, I thought that you or Monique might have changed that particular section.
The only thing that I brought to attention that was not in there.
Maybe you kept a section, I sent it more than once, I'm sorry.
Maybe we did the wrong one.
But yeah, it could have been.
But the only thing we were making a change to that was not in there, which is the only one thing that keeps a person running for the board, is a felony, which is not in this
Right,
proposed bylaw
right.
change.
We did leave it out. We forgot moral turpitude too.
I was gonna say, that was the other thing. There was two things, right, that should be in there.
Bigger concern that I actually have with the revised, from the board, revised edition that was sent back was the one regarding directors' relatives being employees of the fort.
Out of here.
And that was changed from what we did, and that was also attempted with the amendment resolution several months ago, 3-4 months ago.
But
was,
Dan, we took it out.
Blocked.
We took it out because you noticed it. Some
Yes,
things
but I want to know
get by
if this new
me.
version, Mr. Herman just said that his still had the one about turning over the list of undeliverable ballots to the administration.
No, believe me,
That'll also include.
No.
No, it says,
No.
number 8, shall not be related to any administrative level employed by blood, consanguinity, within the 3rd degree, or by marriage or
No, it doesn't.
cohabitation.
Let's see, well, if the
It's,
administration
you do
was
have,
the key.
you do have the wrong version. I gave you the date of the right version. I will give it to you
This is the one
again.
that we have in our packet.
Yeah.
That's all, that's.
That's
all we
my
know
fault.
At this time, is what we will give.
That's
not-
my
I
fault.
understand, but that's not the correct one, that's not the last one.
Yes, that's my fault.
Look at
Okay,
it at a different
this
time.
is the one we were given, Dan, and
Okay,
I'll be
fine.
honest with you, I didn't even read it because it was a final.
Sandy,
Little change, a couple of words that have a huge impact
Sure.
on our whole association and organization.
There were only 2 things about when I read the initial one, the final one I didn't read because I thought it was the one I had read before. But the only thing we're concerned about, in which the attorney is likely going